Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to everybody here, and welcome to everybody at home, sitting in your lovely warm homes. Nice to have you all here. This is our Christmas social, the last one before Christmas, and the next meeting that starts in January next year, on the 4th of January. So this evening, first of all, we have a talk about the birds of Papua New Guinea by Matt Eade. And after that, we are having a quiz set by Neil Bucknell. And then we here will be having some delicious food and cake and stollen and fruit drinks to sort of celebrate the end of the year and the club. So first of all, I'll start with, has anybody had any local sightings? I was walking today at Wintergate Park, and we had a raven pretty much soon after we walked in the park, and a flock of lapwing, maybe something like 20 or 30 lapwing, and not too much else apart from about a dozen robins scattered around the place, which was very beautiful. I do have some local sightings here that I'll tell you about. There was a great white egret at Moor Green and Padworth, a five-crested at Streatley, a medgull at Dinton Pastures, a merlin at Englefield, which is something I've yet to see still in Berkshire, a glossy ibis at Moor Green, 23 red-crested pochard at Hose Hill, and ringneck duck, 2 females at Moatlands, both on one day. Does anybody here in the room have any local sightings? Anybody? Nothing out of the ordinary?
Lesser redpoll in the garden a few days ago.
Oh, Robert has had a lesser redpoll in his garden. When, Robert?
2 or 3 days ago.
2 or 3 days ago, a lesser redpoll. That's very nice. And I'm still just waiting for my male house sparrow that I saw last time to turn up again, but it hasn't come back yet. Right, right. So I don't think there's anything else to actually talk about, apart from to introduce Matt, first of all, Matt Eade. Matt's father introduced him to natural history. He was interested in birds by the age of 7. He was visiting famous reserves in the south of England. Before the age of 30, he had landed on all 7 continents, and last one was the Australasia, when he went to Papua New Guinea. When he was in 2020, he joined Naturetrek and has led tours to Jamaica, southern France, Shetland, the Highlands of Scotland, Somerset and Dorset. Now this evening he's going to tell us about the glorious birds and latest developments in Papua New Guinea. So can we all welcome Matt Eade, please?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, everyone. Just checking that you can see my screen. Is it possible to have the mute off at the hall?
Simon?
Okay, how's that? Oh.
That looks fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we're there? Okay, great. I think that sounds good. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Matt, as I've been kindly introduced. So yes, just a wee bit about myself before I head into my talk. Quite a short talk this evening on Papua New Guinea. So yes, I'm now 32, been working for Naturetrek, one of the world's leading wildlife tour operators, for just over 2 years now. Started just before the pandemic, but before that, I was very fortunate to have set foot on all 7 continents. And as said, my last one was the continent of Australasia, and Papua New Guinea for years has been one destination that I've been desperate to go to, and of course really it's for its birds of paradise. Now I spent a month there in 2019, visiting all different corners of the country. And tonight, because I do have a relatively short period to talk, I'm just going to talk on 2 locations, but these are 2 very remote locations in the north and northeast of the country. So hopefully it'll give you a good insight and maybe a lesson or 2 of these least visited places. So this is the flag of Papua New Guinea on the left there, and as you can see on one half of the flag there is a bird of paradise, so thankfully they are aware of such beautiful birds on their lands. And on the right hand side, those are the Ragiana birds of paradise that can be found around Port Moresby, but I will touch on that a little bit later. Okay, so this is a map for Papua New Guinea, and the 2 locations in white, the Adelbert Mountains and the Huon Peninsula, are the places that I'm going to speak on this evening. And we've got Port Moresby, the capital of Papua New Guinea, just on the southeast peninsula at the bottom there. So I'm just going to quickly, briefly talk about the topography of the country, because that is a result of why there's so much endemism on the island, especially in the bird world. And those 2 destinations that I'm going to talk about this evening. So if you can see my arrow here, that's the Adelbert Mountains. So that's mostly red. So that's an altitude of around 2,000 to 3,000 meters above sea level. And if we head just fractionally southeast, this is the Huon Peninsula. And you see there are a few white caps there, which makes it around 4,000 meters above sea level. And the reason why these areas are not only rich in biodiversity, but also have lots of endemism about them, is that these white caps, they have what's called is allopatриc speciation. So these are geographical barriers that prevent a species from basically spreading across the country. So on the Huon Peninsula in particular, there are at least 5 or 6 endemic birds. And looking at it, it's actually not a very large area either. So these mountains, they rise up from the sea very quickly, pretty much trapping birds from moving out of that area. And over millennia, these birds have evolved to live in this environment. Now, just looking at the central belt there as well, these are what is known as the Central Highlands. So they range all the way across West Papua as well, which is the left half of that image. And Central Highlands are without doubt the best place in the country to see birds of paradise. Has by far the most species, very accessible by air and road, whereas the 2 locations I'm going to talk about this evening, they are not as easy to get to. So it is very much an adventure. When you go to Papua New Guinea, you have to expect things will go wrong. They do go wrong, but it is a fantastic place, as I'm sure you are fully aware. Okay, so just a brief snap on the birds of Papua New Guinea. So there are 7 endemic bird families, and 3 of which are monotypic. So these are the blue-capped ifrit, the mottled berry hunter, and the wattled ploughbill. Now those 3 species are the only member of that family, which is quite incredible, really. And the bird on the right, just here within the circle, that is the wattled ploughbill, and it is just a quite incredible species, a tiny bird, and when the male displays, those ploughs really spread out, and it is quite a bird. The book doesn't actually do it much justice at all, but as I say, an absolute fantastic bird, and one that can be seen in the Central Highlands. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few landscapes of the country. It's all very mountainous, especially in the central regions and up in the north, which of course creates quite dramatic scenery. Rampant rivers as well, raging through the mountains. And this is a typical scene as we head into the mountains. And this is, in fact, where you would do most of your birding, along these distinct tracks. So the country isn't really suitable, let's say, for ISBB groups who want to go off into trails, etc. It's all pretty much predominantly birding along these roads. But of course, along the roads, there is the forest edge, and that's where most of the species are. You think that most of the species will be right deep in the forest, but in fact they're not. It's the forest edge they are attracted to, and that's mainly because of the insects and the fruiting trees, both low level and high level. And this is a typical scene when you do head into the forest. 5 or 6 very wet birders who are craning their necks to try and see whatever bird it is in question. This bird was the common paradise flycatcher, a kingfisher, sorry, common paradise kingfisher. And as you can see, it is quite hard work. You do get wet. Unfortunately, there are 2 seasons in Papua New Guinea. One is a wet season, and the other is a wet season. It just so happens that one of the wetter seasons happens to be a bit drier than the other one, and that's pretty much it. So the best time to go to Papua New Guinea is roughly between June and October. That's when the weather does tend to calm down a bit. But the birds of paradise, they do in fact display pretty much all year round. So it doesn't matter when you go. If you're tight for time between June and October, you can head out another time of year and you will still see the displays, hopefully, of the birds of paradise. Righty, so I'm firstly tonight going to talk about the Adelbert Mountain Range, which is just this area here. And how we get there, we fly up from Port Moresby. Most of the travelling in country is by plane. Their internal flight system is actually very good, considering what the state of the country is in. I wouldn't dare go across it by road, so it's certainly a fly up, and you fly into Madang, which is just here, and then it's a very rough drive all the way along the north coast and then into the mountains, which, believe me, is exceptionally rough in places. So it's very much an adventure for sure. And these are the mountains. So as you can see, pretty much untouched. In this area, the population is very low. Of course, it is increasing. Everywhere is increasing. And that is putting pressure, especially on the lower elevations. But up high, it's still pretty good, which is fantastic news. And of course, you get this lush environment. No doubt, species to be discovered in these mountains. Very few birders go here, which is great news for us because we get the lodges to ourselves, we get the trails to ourselves, and also we get the birds to ourselves, which is just brilliant. This is a view probably about halfway up the mountain range, but looking north out to sea. And if you look just over to the right-hand edge of your screen, a volcano had actually erupted the week before, and it was still smoking, which was quite dramatic to see. And of course, that did have a slight impact on the aviation side of things, but thankfully it all cleared up. Okay, so there's only one lodge in the Adelbert Mountains, and the reason we come here, or I went there, was for just one bird, which may sound a bit extreme to some. It is, but that bird in question is called the fire-maned bowerbird, an absolutely incredible species, one of many in the country. Especially bowerbirds as well. They create these superb structures to display at, which I'll show you in a second. But thankfully, this one species has promoted interest in the birding world, and so a nice little lodge has been constructed in the grounds pretty much next to the bowerbird tree, which is this one tree right in front of my telescope. And my 3 days at the lodge pretty much involved me sitting on my backside and staring at this one tree in the hope of seeing a fire-maned bowerbird, of which that it is. So here it is, the fire-maned bowerbird. It only took a day and a half of sitting down, so not too bad. But as you can see, I hope you can see, it really is a staggering bird in more ways than one. But that beautiful pale iris, the fire-coloured mane going down from the crown all the way down the back, and the lovely banana colour in the wing there as well. It really is a truly beautiful bird. And as I said earlier, this is the only site where you can reliably see this bird. So it's endemic to the Adelbert Mountain Range, a range which is very small anyway. But this one lodge, this one tree, is the best place in the world to see this one bird. And trust me, it was worth it. Of course, it's not just the bowerbirds here. There are several birds of paradise which can also be found here. The magnificent bird of paradise, the lesser bird of paradise, and riflebirds as well. But this, in my view, trumps those birds of paradise somewhat. And this is a bower not of the fire-maned bowerbird, I'm sad to say, but this was in Papua New Guinea, and the structure is very similar. So this is a structure of the fawn-breasted bowerbird, a commoner species for sure, widely spread, not only in Papua, but also in northern Australia as well. But it just goes to show the intricacies of the construction of the bower. And this is, so one of many bowerbirds that you can find on the island. So yep, incredible bird, incredible structure, and also an incredible journey to get there as well. Okay, so my next spot is the Huon Peninsula. Hands up, I can't see you, but hands up who have heard of the Huon Peninsula. Yep, I thought so, not many, or who have been there. Again, I can't see you or hear you, but I'm guessing not many. And that is pretty much because it is not only extremely difficult to get there, you've got to charter a plane from a place called Leh, which is just around here, and hop over this very high mountain range. And in a small plane, you almost skim the surface of the mountaintops as you cruise down the other side. It is quite a nerve-wracking journey, let's say. And on the way back, I didn't even have a seat. I had to lay in the aisle and hold on to people. That's how. That's what health and safety is like in the country, but there we go, enough said about that. So yes, the Huon Peninsula, and the reason why we went here, there are 3 birds of paradise which are endemic to this tiny peninsula which sticks out in the northeast of the country, and probably one of, I would say, personal view, but I would say the most striking of the birds of paradise as well, which I will get to later. And as I said earlier, the reason why they're here is because of that allopatric speciation, so this geographical feature which has risen up from sea level quite quickly as well. It's a volcanic land, so it does happen quickly in geological terms, and basically trapping this species on the east side of the mountains, of which there are now 5 or 6 endemic birds. So this is the plane, and that is the main runway on the Huon. That nice concrete bit is unfortunately just where you land. Unfortunately, the rest of the runway is filled with rubble and a few spinal injuries along the way, but that's fine. And that is how you get there. The bad weather, unfortunately, it got us stuck there for a couple of days as well. As I said, things happen on Papua New Guinea that sometimes you don't wish things to happen, but there we go. And this is the view from the top of the range. So you can see that is at some height and very sheer as well. And that's pretty much like that along the entire escarpment. So yeah, it's very tricky for the birds to get over if they wanted to, but clearly they don't. And that is just one of the views looking north into, oh, I can't remember the name of the sea now, but that's one of the islands offshore, just to the east of where that volcano had erupted, which I showed you just now, but all very dramatic scenery. And this is mainly the birding path that you walk along the Huon. So as I said earlier, the birds are attracted to the forest edge, and it is predominantly quiet birding. The birds on Papua are very shy. Unfortunately, all the kids and adults, they carry catapults with them to try and get the birds of food, which, sometimes you just have to accept it and get on with it, as nasty as it is. And this is another reason why very few people have been to the Huon. Yes, this is a campsite, and it is at a very high altitude as well. So at night it does get quite parky, but we're used to that now, aren't we? In our -1, -2 temperatures. And just some friendly locals. The kids love it. The adults don't, so it's fine. But yeah, all very friendly up there. It's a very friendly country, in fact. So please don't be put off by past happenings in the 80s and 90s. It's much better now. Anyway, to the birds, to the birds. So this is an endemic to the Huon. This is a spangled honey eater. You can see how it got its name, the lovely pale spangles going down the breast and belly there. But this is almost identical, apart from those spangles, to the common honey eater found on the western side of the mountain range. But they don't overlap. There's no hybrids at all. So over hundreds and thousands of years, this species has adapted to have spangles on itself. No idea why, but it is now its own species, the spangled honey eater. Okay, a bird of paradise, at long last, you say, at long last. So this is not one of the most attractive of them all. This is a female Huon astrapia, but as the name suggests, this is endemic to the peninsula and quite common, in fact, around the mid-elevations. Most of the birds of paradise here are at the mid-elevations. It's too high for them, above 3,000 meters, but too low. It's where the human population tends to penetrate the habitat too much. So the mid-elevations are where most of these birds are found. And as I said earlier, by far the most striking bird of paradise, I think, in Papua New Guinea is this chap, the emperor bird of paradise. Very aptly named, I would say, and it is an absolute corker. Now, this species is endemic to the Huon, and it's only found in the very limited range indeed, between 670 meters to 1,300 meters. So a very, very slim range, and hence why it's been trapped on the east side of the mountains here. And that's mainly because of food, really. Mainly feeds on fruits, but also insects as well. But it just doesn't like going much higher than that, which is a great shame because unfortunately, eventually the humans will arrive and its habitat will be degraded more so. But anyway, enough on that. This bird of paradise is absolutely stunning. So the male, this is a male bird, and they roam around the valleys in very small flocks, usually 3, 4 or 5 birds. And when the males are together, they just make these raucous noises all day long. So you can keep track of them. It's just seeing them is a different story entirely. So a lot of patience is required to see this gorgeous bird. And if you're lucky, like I was, unfortunately I don't have a photo, but I was very fortunate to see this species displaying. Now, the males of the emperor bird of paradise have a very, very unique display in the fact that they display together, much like a few of the birds of paradise in Papua and West Papua. But this chap, when it's on its perch, as it is here, it would slowly lean backwards until it's completely upside down, and then it starts its display. So a complete upside down display, no doubt showing off its wonderful backside. I'm sure it has a wonderful backside, but also its fluorescent green face. It fans out, and the plumes as well on its side fan out as well, and the noise sticks with me. It truly is a fantastic display by the emperor bird of paradise, but yet this species is not common at all, so only found within a limited range and only on the Huon Peninsula. So there we go, the emperor bird of paradise. And I think I quickly just have time for probably one of my favourite moments on the island during the month-long trip to Papua New Guinea. This is the Varney's Parotia. Varney is actually German. This bird was discovered in 1906 by a German explorer. I guess someone got to the emperor bird of paradise before him, because that was discovered in 1888. But this chap was discovered in 1906. So really not that long ago, and it's the largest of the Parotia species. Now, I'm sure you know the Parotia family have this beautiful dance display, and in their own arena as well. So an arena roughly 1.5 to 2 meters in diameter, and they're the ones that clear all the leaves and clear all the roots off the arena, so they have a lovely clean arena to do their display in. And when I was there, I was very fortunate to be one of a handful of people to see the display. So don't adjust your screens or anything, and no need to adjust the sound. There's no sound with this one apart from a few insects, so no need to turn the sound up. But I'll play it twice as well, but enjoy the video of a displaying Varney's Perotia. Well, I could hear the oohs and ahs, I promise you. Wasn't that just amazing? So here it is, it's doing its ballerina dance. So this is a male that there's no females around, so this is just practicing its dance. So you can see the head plumes there shaking around, the ballerina skirt going up. And then at the end, you just see its lovely facial shield there. And before it turns sideways, very long-tailed bird and removing leaves off the arena. But that was absolutely incredible. And the researcher I saw showed the video to him, and he said very, very few people have ever seen that. So there we go. Right, now, unfortunately, that's pretty much almost me done. However, I'm going to inform those that do want to go to Papua New Guinea, but may be slightly put off by the two regions I have discussed this evening, that you can go to Papua New Guinea, spend a few days there and see this chap, the Ragiana bird of paradise, which is only a 45-minute drive away from the capital city, Port Moresby, which is only a 3-hour flight away from Queensland. Can't remember the name of the airport now. So they are highly accessible. If you want to see a bird of paradise, please go there. The locals need your help. Yeah, the birds need your help. It is a truly stunning place, and so you can get some incredible views of some of our most spectacular birds, not only in PNG but on the planet. Righty, I think that's me done. I think that's 20 minutes up. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that little snapshot of Papua New Guinea. If you want to see the full version, you have to invite me back. So thank you very much. I will stop sharing my screen now, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Matt, thank you. That was absolutely fabulous, taking us away from all this doom and gloom and cold and wet in England. That was really, really beautiful. I wish I'd asked you to talk for twice as long, actually. That's really, really lovely. You did get oohs and ahs at certain moments.
Oh, good.
Yes, I'm sorry, but you don't hear them, do you? In fact, you did get reactions, I can assure you. Does anybody here in the room have anything they'd like to ask Matt? Not really. There is one person, by the way, who has been there, Matt. I think we had one person who put his hand up, and he's been there. And he came here specifically because he wanted to hear your talk this evening.
Oh, great, great.
So I probably will be asking you back because I suspect he'd like to hear more. Right, Robert Codden, yes.
Yes, with the fire-maned bowerbird, does it still produce its bower on the ground, or does it produce something up in that tree?
Does the fire?
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah, did you hear the question, Matt?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I got the question. Thank you.
Oh,
yep. So all the bowers are on the ground. So that bowerbird tree, it's basically there. It's a fruiting tree, and pretty much the only one that the locals can find within that immediate area. So yeah, the lodge was made up because there were reliable sightings year after year after year. And so very few birders go up there each year, if any. It's not an annual occurrence that people go up there, but when they do, there's a fair chance that you will see the fire mains. But yep, the bowers are solely on the ground still.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Have any questions at home, Sally? No, not that you can see. Okay, right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for coming at such short notice. I'm really, really grateful to you because I was in a bit of a stick. So I'm really pleased that you responded to my desperate phone call the other day. And I'm sure we would love you to come back I'm just beginning to do the next season's talk, so perhaps we will drag you back again. You actually come here in person. Come here in person.
Yeah, drag me back, no problem at all.
Great, thank you. If everybody could just thank Matt once again for his time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt. And now we are going to ask Neil to step forward. We are going to do a bird quiz here. People have been given a piece of paper and a pencil. I'm not sure how long.
Good evening, Neil.
Thank you. I've been prevailed upon to partly revive the Christmas quizzes that I used to do at our socials a few years back. Of course, now that we're not all in the same room, it's slightly different really, because you can't all sit around tables in groups of 4 with your answer sheets. And also, we haven't bought any wine to give to the winners. So that's another important difference between the two. However, in many ways, I'm going to follow the format that we had before, but this is going to be rather more informal because there are no prizes. So if you want to do it on your own, that's fine. If you want to do it in a small team at home or indeed in the room, that's fine. No problems at all. You may recall I used to do, I think it was 5 rounds of 8 questions. A slight departure this time in that I've got another round, which is up on your screens at the moment. Let me explain what that's all about, because I'm going to leave that there. That's a puzzle for you to work on, whilst you're also puzzling the varied and different and sometimes slightly tedious questions that I'm going to be raising in the main part of the quiz. As you'll know from many of the talks you've heard just lately, technology in the last 30-odd years has revealed an amazing amount of information about birds, and in particular about bird migration. We've been able to fit radio transmitters to larger birds, and for smaller birds where radio transmitters are simply too large even now to be able to be carried, what something known as a geolocator is fitted, which has to be recovered, which records at set intervals the length of daylight of the place where the bird is at that time, which enables the scientists, when the bird is hopefully retrapped and the information is read, to work out where they've been. And this has shown a vast amount of information previously unknown, not just about where birds breed and where they winter, but also where they go in the meantime. On your screen, you'll see there are 8 maps. These are derived from such studies, each of which relates to an individual species. Some of them are the track of an individual bird. Some of them are collective tracks of a number of birds following the same path. Now, to help you, there are 11 species listed at the bottom, and all the 8 species in question are amongst those 11. So at least you can eliminate from your cogitations as you keep looking at that, as the evening goes on, what some of them might be. So those 8 are within the 11 down there. So what you have to do is match each letter of the map with the correct species to get the correct answers. So I will leave you to look at that periodically while I ask the rest of the questions. Now, those of you who remember my old quizzes know that quite a lot of it is not actually very technical bird related. Some of it is only peripherally related to birds. And indeed, one of my rounds is very peripherally related to birds. And I will expect you to groan when you hear the questions. But nonetheless, let us start. What I think we'll do this time, because we're not passing papers around to be marked, etc., I will run through all 5 rounds reasonably slowly, I hope, so that people don't lose track. And if anybody in the room thinks I'm going too fast, please shout, throw something, or otherwise indicate to me that I should slow down. And then when we've done the whole lot, we'll then go through them probably a round at a time and see how people are getting on. And then we'll have a final reveal on the 8 species that are represented by those migration tracks there. before we then find out which of you is bird and other associated subject brain of Reading Christmas 2022. So let us start with round one. Round one is people and places associated with our late President Robert Gilmore. So you can put those field guides away. The first question. At which school in Reading did Robert teach before he gave up employment to become a full-time professional artist? Right, we've got enough time for that. Question 2. To which Norfolk village, and for a full mark I will need the full name, did Sir Robert move to from Reading in 1996 when he said he was retiring, but he just moved into different work? Question 3. Who succeeded him as our president when he moved away from Reading? Enough time for that? Question 4. Which eminent artist was his grandfather? Another eminent wildlife artist. Question 5. One of Robert's great legacies was the Society of Wildlife Artists, which he helped establish. An event that gave rise to the events that led to the establishment of the SWLA was an exhibition of wildlife art that he arranged in 1960 with Eric Enyon. Where was this held? Question 6. Who preceded him as our president? Who was the president before Robert? I expect Carol White will be the person who gets most of these right. I saw she was on the screen. Question 7. Robert produced 3 books featuring the work of an earlier artist who lived for many years on Anglesey and who died in 1979. Who was this artist? think it's a pretty difficult round unless you've been a member of the club as long as I have. The final question. Robert actually lived in the same house in Reading for the first 62 years of his life. In what road in Reading did he live? It's a stinker around this, isn't it? But I suspect Carol will know all the answers. Right, have you all had enough time on Robert Gilmore? Right, let's move to something a little less esoteric. Round 2 is Robin Facts and Figures. Okay, first question on robins. There's only one country covered by the latest European Breeding Bird Atlas where no evidence of breeding robins was found. Which European country was that? Okay, question 2, 50% chance of getting this right on a guess. Which is heavier, a stone chat or a robin? Question 3. Why did robins become associated with Christmas cards in Victorian times? Okay. Question 4. According to BTO Bird Facts, how many robin territories are there in the United Kingdom? And we'll allow 10% each way. How many robin territories in the entire United Kingdom? Question 5. From UK ringing data, how old was the oldest robin found in the UK by the ringing scheme? Nearest whole number of years will be fine.
Give us 3 options.
Well-
A, B or C.
I'm going to phone a friend.
No.
No. Number 6. In the last BTO National Breeding Bird Atlas, in what percentage of all the 10-kilometre squares throughout, I think this is actually the entire British Isles, not just UK, was breeding confirmed for robins?
Sorry, what percentage did you say?
Well, in what percentage of the 10-kilometre squares did they prove robins breeding? No, actually, I think that might be United Kingdom rather than British Isles. Okay, question 7. What's the furthest distance that a robin has moved, as recorded by the bird ringing scheme, to the nearest 100 kilometres? That's recorded by the British ringing scheme. What is the longest distance between the site of ringing and the site of recovery?
In any country?
In any country. This is definitely not in Britain, where it was recovered. You have a bonus if you give you the country where it was. And finally, question 8. What's the typical clutch size? In other words, how many eggs does it lay at one go to the nearest whole number of eggs?
That would be a whole number of eggs. So did you say the biggest or average?
The typical, average, yes, average, typical, median. Right. Have you all had enough of that? In which case, we're going to move on to round 3. And in round 3, I'm going to test your knowledge of RSPB reserves. So this is about RSPB reserves. Question 1. On which Scottish island can you find the Loch Gruinard Reserve? I have been there.
Yes, what island?
Yes, what island? And what Scottish island? Help me. Okay, question 2. The late Bert Axel, who was one of the RSPB reserve wardens, pioneered a lot of their wetland habitat creation. But which coastal reserve was he based between 1959 and 1977? Yeah, the late Bert Axel was a pioneer of the RSPB's wetland habitat creation. But which coastal reserve was he based between 1959 and 1977? Question 3. Which Norfolk Reserve is known as one of the best places to see large gatherings of knot in winter? Question 4. Which Scottish reserve was created to protect one of the first sites to which ospreys returned to breed in the 1950s? Question 5. What's the name of the Heathman Reserve in Dorset between Wareham and Swanage? Question 6. Which Lancashire reserve is known as one of the best sites in the north of England for breeding bitterns? Question 7. What is the Somerset Reserve near Glastonbury that has attracted a number of heron and egret species to breed in recent years?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, what is the Somerset Reserve near Glastonbury that has attracted a number of heron and egret species to breed in recent years? And finally, number 8. Bowling Green Marsh is a reserve just outside a city in southern England. Which city? Okay, we've had enough of that one. We move on to round 4. This is one that will make you groan. Groan. Bird place names. I am going to give you a number of place names in England which have kind of bird connections. Some of them very, very tenuous indeed. Some of them so tenuous you will undoubtedly groan. What I'd like to know in each case, in which county this particular place is situated. So number 1 is Nottingley. Where is Nottingley? Question 2, where is Rufford? Number 3, and where is Swanscombe? And number 4, where is Goose Tree? Number 5, in which county do you find Hawkhurst? Hawkhurst. Number 6, Martinstown. Okay. Number 7, real grown coming up, Bishop Auckland. Ooh. And finally, number 8, rather more straightforward, Birdlip. Have we had enough bird name places? I think that looks like a yes. Okay, so the final round that is not up there staring it from your screens is the bird news round. Question 1, we hear a lot about bird flu. What do the initials HPAI stand for? HPAI. Number 2. Which venue for BBC's Spring Watch suffered severe fire damage in July this year? Question 3. Whose period as RSPB president came to an end this year? So the outgoing rather than the new president of the RSPB. Question 4. What is the name of the Sussex estate that is the site of a scheme to reintroduce breeding white storks into Britain from captive reared birds?
It's number 4.
This is number 4. Okay. Number 5. Which annual event that was suspended during the COVID pandemic was held for the first time since 2019 in July? And following on, number 6, where was it held? Question 7. What did the RSPB lose on the 8th of September? What did the RSPB lose on the 8th of September? And the final question. What colourful change happened to the RSPB's avocet in May? What colourful change happened to the RSPB's avocet in May?
Bringing us back to the start.
Yes, indeed. I don't know what he would think about it. Right. Okay. Does anybody want a few more minutes to stare at that slide and work out what? So? The box at the bottom.
So one means A.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for pointing out that slide.
Down the side instead.
Right. I'll give you all a few more minutes and then we will start with some answers.
That wouldn't work if you put one bird down for all of them. You might get one of the ones that's
Exactly.
not there.
That's true. Yes, there's no free marks on this one. Rob has finished.
Yeah, run out of ideas.
There are still other people who are looking at that.
Did you say some of those are red herrings or? Yeah.
That's why there are
Red herring birds.
that's why there are 11 birds,
Yeah,
but
well,
only
sure.
eight
Yeah,
mats
okay.
here. Don't worry. Okay. There's still people looking up at that screen. Okay, I'll give you another couple of minutes and then we'll run through the answers so that we've got time to munch our lovelies here. And Rob is looking very confident there. I really ought, by the way, to have acknowledged mostly PTO as the prime source of recipes.
Neil, if you turn to the screen with people on Zoom, find the people to hear.
All right, okay. Sorry about that, people on Zoom. One more minute. Right, I think that people have stopped trying to work out those migration routes. So what I'll do is I'll run through the answers, but please feel free to shout out if you know, to demonstrate your enormous depth of knowledge of the various subjects questioned tonight. The Robert Gilmore People and Places answers. Number 1, the school at Reading where he taught before he gave up work was Leighton Park School. Leighton Park School. Number 2, the village where Robert and Sue moved to, and I want all of this please for 1 mark, but the first part of it will be half a mark. It's Cly next the sea for 1 mark, half a mark for Cly. I'm feeling mean tonight. His successor as our president was Andy Swash. His eminent grandfather artist was Alan Seavey. The exhibition that he arranged in 1960 with Eric Kenyon, that ultimately led to the founding of the SWA, was held in Reading Town Hall. Hooray! His predecessor as our president was Eric Watson. The artist whose work were incorporated in 3 books that he produced, who lived on Anglesey and died in 1979, was Charles Tunnicliffe. And the road that he lived in for 62 years was Northcourt Avenue. Right, okay. Round 2, Robin Facts and Figures. Which is the only European country where no breeding evidence for robins was found? Yes, Iceland. Okay. Which is heavier, stone chattel robin? Robin it is indeed, yes. And the reason that everybody says that robins are associated with Christmas cards is because early postmen used to wear red jackets or red tunics when they were delivering post. How many robin territories are there in the UK according to the BTO? it is 7.4 million.
Oh, wow.
So anything I think between 7 and 8 million included will count for marks on that. The oldest robin found through UK ringing data was thought to be at least 8 years, 4 months and 30 days old. So 8 or 9 years will count for a mark. The percentage of 10 kilometre squares in the UK where breeding was confirmed in the last VTO atlas was 90%.
Oh, wow.
90%. It might actually seem a bit low, but if you look at all the Scottish islands, there's remarkably few upon those. Number 7, the furthest distance that a ringed robin has travelled from the site of ringing to the site of recovery was no less than 2,389 kilometres. So about 2,400 kilometres. Anywhere between 2,000 and 2,500 will score a mark. And what's even more remarkable was that it was ringed in Scotland in the autumn and recovered, I think, the following February in Morocco. So it had got a move on for a bird that you normally think of as a bird that doesn't move far. And the typical clutch size is 4 or 5 eggs. So 4 or 5 works. Okay. The RSPB reserves, the Scottish island where you find Loch Gruinard is Islay. And Bert Axel was one of the RSPB's most famous wardens in the day that I started bird watching. He was at Minsmere at that time. The Norfolk site for watching all those wonderful knock gatherings in autumn and winter is Snettisham. And the Scottish Reserve that was created to protect ospreys in the 1950s was Lochgarten, indeed. That Heathland Reserve between Wareham and Swanage is Arne Heath, or Arne, thank you. The Lancashire Reserve with its Britons is Leighton Moss, indeed. And the Somerset Reserve near Glastonbury, with all those breeding heron and egret species, is Ham Wall. Excellent. And which city lies just to the north of Bowling Green Marsh?
Exeter.
Exeter, well done. Right, okay. The grown bird names of English towns and villages. Nottingley is in West Yorkshire, but Yorkshire will be fine. Rufford is in Lancashire, as in Rufford Great Hall. Swanscombe, you may have seen on signs on the N25, is in Kent. Goosetree, which is not spelt with goose with the at the end, but never mind, is in Cheshire. Hawkhurst, we're back to Kent. Martinstown, driven round the edge of Dorchester in Dorset, you might have seen signs, it's in Dorset. For Bishop Auckland, we move north to County Durham. It's where the Bishop of Durham used to have his palace, apparently. And finally, Birdlip, as anybody who's driven from Swindon to Gloucester knows, is in Gloucestershire. That steep hill you go down to get to the M5. Excellent. Right. Moving on to bird news. HPAI stands for. Well done. Highly pathogenic avian influenza. And the Springwatch venue that suffered a severe fire in July was Wild Ken Hill. The outgoing RSPB president was Miranda Krestovnikov, who was one of the more low-profile presidents after Kate Humble. The Sussex estate, where they're reintroducing white storks, is Knepp Estate. Well done. And the annual event that was suspended, that was held again in July this year, was Bird Fair indeed. But where was it held? Oh, that's right. Well, it was held in Oakham at the Rutland Showground, County Showground. But Oakham will be fine. What did the RSPB lose on the 8th of September? Well done, Rob.
Oh, yes, of course, yes.
Yay, we got 2 royalists. Well done. And finally, what colourful change?
What was the answer for that?
It was the Queen. She died. She was a patron of the RSPB. The colourful change the RSPB's absent was not purple. No, no. The logo was changed, but green was added to the background. It now is blue at the top and green underneath instead of just being all blue. So that will have a major impact on its work and appeal to the public, no doubt. Okay, so finally, let's look at these wonderful maps showing the fantastic information that has been revealed by satellite tracking and geolocators and all this other wonderful technology. A is, I think, almost, actually A and E are the really amazing ones, but then, what is A? Does anybody know what A is? Because A is a really remarkable story. It is, yes. Wheatear, it is indeed, yes. Who would have thought that a little passerine bird breeding in Alaska would have got all the way back to tropical Africa for the winter? That is fantastic. B is probably slightly more straightforward because you can see there are 3 tracks indicating 3 populations. And anybody knows what that is? It is indeed barnacle goose. C you'll probably get if you've seen all the publicity about one of the most high-profile tracking projects that's been undertaken. Anybody care to? Not swallow, no? It is indeed. That's all the RSPB cuckoos. Not only the ones they've marked over here, but in the days before the world went mad, they actually went out to Belarus and put transmitters on them out there as well, which is why you've got northern ones further to the east. D is a single bird. This is the track of a single bird outside it, well, during and outside its breeding season. Anybody hazard a guess at that? It is indeed Mount Shearwater, yes. I think that's actually one of Tim Guilford's who came to speak about shearwaters recently. Sorry, is anybody missing an answer? E is probably the D, Mount Shearwater. E is probably the champion long-distance non-stop migrant is yet so far revealed, because the wheat is, it is indeed bar-tailed godwit, and one of those has gone from Alaska to New Zealand non-stop, has probably established a record for movement without breaking its journey. What about number F? What is that? That's quite a distinctive, even though it's been slightly misleading because it's been put in 2 colours. Nope. Nope. It is a swift, yes. I should explain that you'll see there's some blobs for swifts and on the wheatear. One of the problems with geolocators is because they calculate it by the length of the date. When they get down into the tropics where day length doesn't vary very much, it's a lot more difficult to pick up their precise location. One of the things that putting geolocators on Swift showed was they don't just go down to the Congo, they carry on to the Indian Ocean coast. And then they do a double figure of 8 back out across the Gulf of Guinea and then back up to see us the following year. Truly remarkable. What is G then? What is G? This is a single bird. You've stabbed right. So it is a nightingale. And finally, what are all those birds in map H? They're not fieldfare. They are woodcock, yes. Yes, fieldfare was the deliberate blind that was put in. Okay. I don't know whether any people want, having self-marked, to add up what they've got. And whether, I don't know whether anybody at home, do we have some, how many have we got there? We've got, count yourself, what is 9 times 48? We've got 48 potential answers to get right. Where shall we start coming up?
I'm embarrassed. I think I'm going to keep quiet.
Who's got 20 or more? We've got 2 in the room. We've got
We've got a couple of hands at home.
We've got 4 left in the race. Okay. Who's got 25 or more?
I've got 25.
Who's
Oh,
got?
We've got one, yeah, Judy. Yes, the one on Zoom.
We've got 3 left in the race. Who has got 26?
Nobody on Zoom has got 26.
So Rob wins. Rob is our bird brain of winning. Dare ask Rob, how many did you get?
30.
30. I thought he was looking quietly confident over there. Well done, and I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you. Yes, do you want to wind up? Yeah, I'll get out of you.
Sorry, everybody. Sorry, everybody waiting at home. Are we still on?
No, we're still on, yes.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay, we're going to have some food and something to drink now here. And I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us. I hope you did all enjoy the talks this evening from Matt and Neil's quiz. Thank you so much for stepping in at late notice as well. Really nice of you. The next meeting now is Lundy and its House Sparrows on January the 4th by Julia Schroeder. We'd love it if some more of you could come back and join us here. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a lovely Christmas, everybody at home and everybody here. And we'll see you again soon. Okay, bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.